Hello again everyone, Mary Rose here at Stitch Bliss Corner on Sunday, August the 20th, 2023. And I would like to begin by thanking everyone for their response to my secret mania in July stitch. I think everyone would know by now who watched the video that I thoroughly enjoyed the whole process. The only drawback was that I had to leave poor Fancy Boots to the side for, a few months or so. But now I'm back into the swing with him, which is really good. Your comments were just wonderful. And I think I won't mention what I stitched, just in case there are people that have come back for Fancy and want to have a look and see what the secret was, because what I did in that video was I left until the end for people to see exactly what the stitching was, and some people chose to follow through and not look until the end, and some of them said they really enjoyed that aspect. So I don't want to spoil it for someone who hasn't seen it yet. But in the next update of Fancy Boots, I will talk about that secret stitch a little bit more, because there are a few things that I want to mention. So anyway, if I sound a bit nasally, it's because I am. We've had a strange sort of cold again in this household. I think there is another version of the dreaded lurgy going round. We did test ourselves for that and it wasn't, but it might not have been, but it must have been pretty close to it. So, it's left me a little bit nasally. So I apologise for that. But I thought really it wasn't fair for me to wait another week or so until things cleared up a little bit more, because you've been waiting for so long to see the progress on our friend. So anyway, just before I get to that though, there were a few questions that I got in the comments of my last Dear Guest from Far Away piece, and there were a few comments that I think must have gone missing because I've had a bit of trouble with my YouTube studio comments. When I go to the studio, it tells me I haven't got any. And then when I go on the internet, I've got some. So I've had a little bit of trouble there, but hopefully it'll be ironed out this time. Now, one of the questions was about Fiddlers Cloth. And so Harlequin was quite happy to go and have a look, because he's a great research engine, as you know. There's Google and there's Harlequin. Anyway, Fiddler's Cloth. It's similar to Ada in its weave, but it is made of 50% cotton, 42% polyester, and 8% silk. It comes in 14, 16 and 18 counts, and is popular for its rustic oatmeal colouring. Now, it says here, someone asked, "Hi everyone, I'm still fairly new at cross-stitch and wanted to get some advice or past experience that someone has had using Fiddler's Cloth." And someone was kind enough to reply. This was 4 years ago. "It has been a really long time since I stitched on that stuff, but I seem to remember that the weave is not consistent. Thicker in some places, thinner in others, hence wonky stitches. I guess it's supposed to give it more of a homespun look, almost like stitching on burlap, but it can be frustrating if you want really consistent stitches. Someone else may have had a different experience, but that's how I remember Fiddler's Cloth." And there is a picture here of the Fiddler's Cloth, and I'm just wondering, there it is there, and you can see it's got some strange threads through it. I don't know if that's the polyester or not, but I'm wondering if they just came up with that as a more durable fabric for if you wanted to make a bag or something, to put over your shoulder, and you wanted to put a very simple cross-stitch design on it. because it's got the polyester in it, which would make it more robust as a bag. I mean, that's all I can think of. Otherwise, I think I'd avoid it like the plague, because, you know, it's if you want your stitches to look nice. So that's my thoughts on Fiddler's Cloth, and thanks to Harlequin for having a look at that. He has put another picture there. I think this is where it was sort of up for sale. And I think the suggestion is that if you want it to look like a historical piece, if you're doing, you know, a sampler and you want it to look that little bit more authentic, but, you know, it's not authentic, is it? So I don't really know. But, you know, some people might be looking for that kind of effect. But just look there, there's a big loop of thread just hanging 10 there, so can't quite work that one out. Anyway, so that's the Fiddler's Cloth. Oh, and the other question was, what do I do about old threads? You know, if I'm collecting all the threads up for another piece that I'm working on. And usually what I do is, because you know how sometimes you bring out all your threads and there's one that's got a number on it, but the new thread that you've got doesn't look quite like that colour, because of course they're all different dye lots. You know, it's like when my mother used to knit us cardigans and all that sort of thing, and in those days you often went to a shop that specialised in skeins of wool and everything, and because wool was quite expensive, still is, but the budgets were limited then, you would buy your number of skeins that you needed for your jumper, and they would keep the skeins, but that it would all be the right dye lot. Otherwise, if you waited, like if you knitted up that number and then you went back to the shop, they might not have that dye lot anymore. So they would keep the rest of the dye lot for you, and you would buy as you could until it was all, you know, sort of like it was yours, but it wasn't yours, sort of thing. You know, like a lay-by. There'll be a few cuts here where I clear my throat. Anyway, so coming back to the bobbins, the threads. So what I usually do is I have a bit of a look to see now if the thread that I am looking at, my old thread, has a big area of the same colour, then I'm not likely to use that old thread, because you won't get the same dye lot. You're better off, if it's a large expanse of the same colour, just using your new skeins. But if it's an area where it's interspersed with other colours, or, you know, like if it's flowers or something like that, well, you could use your old thread if it's not too far off the new thread colour. That's how I usually do it, because there's nothing worse, you know, if you're using your old thread and flying along nicely, and then you think, oh, you know, do I have enough just to finish this little panel part, because there's going to be a big line across otherwise. So you do have to be wary in cases like that. But anyway, that's my answer to that. Now on to the rather magnificent fancy boots. What I'm going to do now is take you over to the list of stills that I do as I progress through the stage, because I'm up to, this is the third from the top now, the third row from the top that you're going to be looking at today. And then there's a short video where I'm using the iPad and going over the top and talking about it. And then you can come back to me and I'll show you the stitching to the camera. So this won't be a very long update, because my voice just isn't up to it, apart from anything else. But I did want you to see him, because, you know, it's nice to see a face and everything. So, right, off you go to look at the video. Well, here's the overview so far of Dear Guest from Far Away. And it is quite difficult now to fit it in to the frame, but I just thought I'd just show you that. And then I'm just going to come down now and show you where I've been working as far as this line here. I've got 2 more rows to go, or pages, and as you can see, Fancy Boots now has a rather magnificent face. The servant got most of his face in, and his hands there, and the fluid going into the goblet. And the host now is also completed there, and the window, which I've done 1/1 for the outside part, and the frame, that's 2/2. Had to do a little bit of fancy footwork with working out which to make 2/1 and which to make 1/1, but I think I've mostly achieved my goal there. So I'll just take you across again, and I'll talk to you shortly. So, yes, there he is, and his host looking rather resplendent as well. So I shall get the stitching now and just show that to you. Let's put my little piece of paper down. I don't need that anymore. I've been through everything there. And here is stitching. I've already started on the next row. That's that bit there. You get a sneak preview of the next row. Now if you see here, I've got my needle hanging there. And what I do, not always but mostly, is if I've got a whole lot of area that's the same colour, in this case it's black, I do put a waist knot in, and I put the thread so that it's not a loop start. It's like that. This has the benefit of the needle not falling out when you leave it, and also you can use up more thread to the end, because you know, it's a smaller turning circle, but as you get, your thread gets thinner. So here, I think I might have another one here, hang on. This one. No. Oh yeah, there it is. So hold on a minute, I've got a little bit of a, yeah. See there? And that's that's the single thread, but it's through like that, and I put a knot, and I've got it still connected, but that needle's not going anywhere. But I usually only do that if I'm doing a large area of the same colour. So anyway, that's that bit up there. So we'll worry about that later when you see him next time. So as you can see, the light from the window over here is reflecting right off his face. Now the servant, the expression on his face is really interesting, because they do say that a good servant is one who doesn't listen to private conversations, from those days anyway, when matters of great importance were probably discussed. And he has that expression, the artist has put that expression of a servant who is totally detached from what these two are talking about. He's doing his job, and that's all he's doing. And at the same time, there's that suggestion of how boring his life is. You know, he's got a roof over his head, and he's got a job and everything, and he looks as though his clothes look pretty good. So good quality and everything. But at the same time, what they're talking about is absolutely of no concern of his, which I think is really so clever, the way the artist has suggested that. And this man here, just looking so wise, it's sort of like Fancy Boots has come to confer with him and ask his advice on something, as well as being a friend. There's a great warmth of atmosphere in this painting. And then this window here, and the decoration around it. Gorgeous. And what I tried to suggest here, by going single thread in the background, was to get a little bit more of a depth there of the outside being exactly that, outside, and the frame being very much inside. So I did vary from the chart there, because the chart had it all as 2/1, but I just put a bit of poetic license in there and did what I wanted. So there I can't see what you're seeing now. I just hold it like that. So we are now on to the next line. Now where's my picture? So we're on to the next line. It's a bit hard to see because it's a fairly dark picture here. So that part is coming up. So the top of the window and the servants, the top of his head and everything. And there's quite a decorative area here. There's another vessel there and a shelf and different things on it. But it is rather amazing because as you're stitching, you just sort of think, oh goodness, that's a hand there, you know, like, or that's wine or something coming from the goblet there. So yeah, so there you go. You're all up to date now, and we'll see how far I can get to finish this piece. Oh, finish it. Oh, I wish. To finish this line. This is the second last line of stitching. So once I finish this panel, then it's just the top panel and he'll be completed, which will be just wonderful. I mean, in the evenings when I put it against this chair, and this blue here, by the way, is one of those heated blankets, and I just switch it on and I can lean back and it's nice and warm. Although I think the people in America have had quite enough of the heat. I mean, I know it's purgatory here in summer, so I know that you'll probably all be looking forward to the cooler times. It seems to me anyway that stitchers in particular are quite keen on the cooler weather because it is more conducive to stitching. And I must say, oh, there's something too I was going to say about how I stitch at the moment, because there's so much that's already been done on him, that when I put my hoop on, wait, I'll just pop it on here just to show you. Nearly finished, I promise, but it just occurred to me. Right, so just, if I've got my hoop on, right, now I've got all this, And I usually roll it all up. It's a bit hard to do it on here, but you'll get the idea. So that's all the stitching that's been done. And I put it over my shoulder there. And then I can work on my stitching here. So that works quite well, because as you go along, this side gets more length on it because you're going that way, so that's getting shorter, and you can put that over your shoulder. In the middle you can't put either one, of course. But as you get further along, it's really quite a good method. For me, I mean, it's not everybody's cup of tea, and you certainly couldn't do it in 100-degree heat. You just get boiling hot. But as you can see, I can stitch here quite nicely. And sometimes I just go two-handed when I'm sitting here, because I've got this hand underneath and I can just pass it around. So up and down. So it just depends on the mood I'm in, as with all my stitching, I think. So anyway, that's what I've been doing. So very nice to catch up with you all again. Thank you to everyone who puts comments in. And to the viewer that is stitching the horse, I hope she's doing making great progress with that horse. I can almost see it, actually. So that's wonderful. Now, just remember to stitch on what you really want to stitch on. I mean, far be it from me to push my opinions on people, but you get a lot more joy from your stitching if you're doing that. It is a labour of love, and what you're stitching, someone is going to treasure very much one day. I know my grandmother, she crocheted doilies, and she crocheted them with flowers that actually sat up off the crocheting. Beautiful. And they've gone from our family, but somebody's probably got them and absolutely treasures them. So it doesn't necessarily have to be your blood that is going to enjoy the fruits of your labours. It could be someone who takes great inspiration from it, that has absolutely no connection whatsoever with you, except for that stitching, and for thinking about what sort of person stitched it, or crocheted it, or whatever it may be. Something that's been made by someone. Like a wonderful piece of furniture, and you sit and marvel at it. It sort of comes through, that kind of love of something that is passed through to new generations that will take inspiration from those pieces, even though they have absolutely no connection except for being another human being who appreciates what another human being did or has done. Where did that come from? Anyway, yes, having said that, all the best to everyone until next time. And it's goodbye from here, from Mary Rose and from Harlequin. Bye for now.